I never thought a single notification sound would destroy my entire world. But there I was, sitting across from my husband of 8 years at our favorite Italian restaurant, watching him fumble with his phone as a message from Sarah, boss, lit up his screen. The thing is, I knew for a fact that my husband didn't have a boss named Sarah. He worked for himself as a freelance graphic designer, had for the past 3 years. So who exactly was texting him at 9:30 p.m. on our wedding anniversary? The message preview was just visible enough to make my blood run cold. Can't wait for tomorrow night, baby. Mark thinks I'm working late again. My fork clattered against my plate as the realization hit me like a freight train. Mark, that was my name. Well, my maiden name that I'd hyphenated after marriage. Sarah wasn't his boss. Sarah was my boss. The same Sarah who'd been acting strange around me for months. The same Sarah who suddenly started asking personal questions about my marriage, my schedule, my husband's work. The same Sarah who insisted on those late evening team meetings that somehow never included me anymore. I looked at my husband, David, as he quickly flipped his phone face down, that guilty expression I'd been seeing more often lately now making perfect sense. His eyes darted up to meet mine and I saw something I'd never seen before. Fear. Pure undiluted fear of being caught. Everything okay, honey? He asked, his voice trying so hard to sound casual that it came out strained instead. I forced myself to smile, even though my heart was hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. Of course. Just thinking about how much our lives have changed over the years. He had no idea how much they were about to change. Because sitting there in that dimly lit restaurant, surrounded by the soft chatter of other couples celebrating their love, I realized that my husband and my boss had been having an affair. And from that message, it was clear they'd been planning something for tomorrow night, something they thought I'd never find out about. But here's the thing about betrayal. It has a way of revealing itself when you least expect it. And as I sat there, pretending to enjoy my anniversary dinner, while my marriage crumbled around me, I knew I had a choice to make. I could confront them right there, cause a scene, and let my emotions take control. Or I could be smart about this. Strategic. Patient. I chose patience. And that choice would lead to the most satisfying revenge I've ever orchestrated. Let me back up and tell you how I got to this moment, because the signs were all there. I just hadn't been looking for them. My name is Jessica and I thought I had the perfect life. I was a marketing coordinator at a mid-sized advertising agency downtown, married to David who ran his own successful design business from our home office. We had our dream house in the suburbs, 2 cars, and were talking about starting a family. From the outside, we looked like we had it all figured out. Sarah Martinez had been my boss for about 2 years. She was one of those women who seemed to have everything, sharp, successful, beautiful in that effortless way that made other women both admire and secretly resent her. She was single, always claimed she was too focused on her career for relationships, and honestly, I respected that about her. She was a mentor to me, someone I looked up to professionally. The first sign something was off came about 4 months ago. David started working later, staying in his home office until well past dinner time. When I'd bring him food, I'd sometimes catch him quickly minimizing browser windows or turning his phone face down. He said he was working on a big project for a new client, something that required a lot of confidentiality, which explained the secrecy. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? We'd built our relationship on trust. The second sign was Sarah's sudden interest in my personal life. She'd always been professional, keeping work and personal matters separate. But suddenly she was asking about David's work, what kind of projects he was taking on, whether he was happy working from home. She'd make comments about how lucky I was to have such a creative husband, how she'd love to meet him someday. Then came the phone calls. David's phone would ring at odd hours, and he'd step outside to answer them. Client from the West Coast. He'd explain. Time zone differences, you know. But I started noticing these calls happened during business hours on the West Coast too, and sometimes I'd hear him laughing in a way that seemed too intimate for a professional conversation. The third sign was Sarah's behavior at work. She started excluding me from certain meetings, saying they were above my level or not relevant to my projects. She'd come back from these meetings looking flushed, almost giddy. Her assistant mentioned that Sarah had been leaving early on certain days, something she never used to do. But the most telling sign was how they both started acting around me. David became overly attentive, bringing me flowers for no reason, suggesting romantic date nights, being extra affectionate, the kind of behavior that screams guilty conscience. And Sarah, she started being almost too friendly, complimenting me constantly, asking if everything was okay at home, if David and I were happy. I should have put it together sooner, but when you love someone, when you trust them completely, your brain finds ways to explain away the inconsistencies. It protects you from the truth until the truth becomes impossible to ignore. The final piece fell into place 2 weeks before our anniversary. I was working late, finishing up a campaign presentation, when I realized I'd left my laptop charger at home. David was out another client meeting, so I drove home to grab it. As I pulled into our driveway, I noticed his car wasn't there, but there was an unfamiliar silver sedan parked across the street. I grabbed my charger and was about to leave when I saw the silver car's door open. Sarah stepped out, checking her phone, looking around nervously. She was 3 blocks from her own house on my street, at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday. She got back in her car and drove off in the opposite direction of her home. 20 minutes later, David texted me saying his meeting was running long and he'd be home by 11. He walked in at 11:15, claiming the client had been indecisive about some design choices. That night, lying in bed next to him, I made a decision. I was going to pay attention, really pay attention. I was going to document everything, gather evidence, and figure out exactly what was happening before I made any moves. For 2 weeks, I became a detective in my own life. I installed a location tracker app on our shared family tablet that David sometimes used. I started noting his schedule discrepancies, screenshotting odd text message notifications when his phone was lying around. I even drove by Sarah's house a few times after work, just to see if David's car was there. It never was. They were smarter than that. But I started noticing patterns, days when they were both busy. At the same times, days when Sarah seemed distracted at work and David came home smelling like unfamiliar perfume. I was building a case, gathering evidence, preparing for the confrontation I knew was coming. I just never expected it to happen on our anniversary. Sitting there in Marcelo's, our anniversary restaurant, watching David panic over that text message, I felt something shift inside me. The woman who had spent 2 weeks playing detective, carefully gathering evidence, suddenly became someone else entirely. Someone calculated. Someone dangerous. I need to use the restroom, I said, standing up and grabbing my purse. Order me another glass of wine. David nodded, relief flooding his face that I wasn't asking about the message. Of course, honey. Take your time. I walked to the bathroom, but instead of going inside, I ducked into the small alcove where the restaurant kept their coats and called Sarah's number. She answered on the second ring. Hey, Jessica. What's up? Kind of late for a work call. Her voice had that breathless quality I'd been noticing lately. I know this is weird, but I'm at dinner and I thought I saw you drive by. Are you in the downtown area tonight? There was a pause. A telling pause. No, I'm at home. Probably just someone who looks like me. You know how it is. Right, of course. Well, I should get back to dinner. David's waiting. Oh, you're out with David tonight. That's nice. Where did you go? The question sent chills down my spine. She was fishing for information about our location, about whether we were home or not. Just a quiet night in, actually. Cooking together, you know how it is. Very domestic. I lied smoothly, watching through the restaurant's front window as a silver sedan, the same one I'd seen on my street, pulled into the parking lot across from Marcelo's. That sounds lovely. Well, enjoy your evening. See you tomorrow. I hung up and watched Sarah get out of her car. She was dressed in a black dress that I'd complimented her on at work just last week, her hair done in loose curls, carrying a small overnight bag. She checked her reflection in her car window, applied lipstick, and then walked toward the hotel next to the restaurant. My husband was having an affair with my boss, and they were planning to spend the night together while I was supposedly at home being domestic. I walked back to our table, my mind racing with possibilities. David looked up at me with that fake smile he'd been wearing more often lately. Everything okay? Perfect, I said, settling back into my chair. Actually, I have a confession to make. His face went pale. What kind of confession? I saw the message on your phone. From Sarah. The color drained from his face completely. His hand tightened around his wine glass, and for a moment I thought he might break it. Jessica, I can explain. I'm sure you can. But here's the thing, David. I already know about the affair. The words hung in the air between us like a loaded gun. David's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Other diners continued their conversations around us, oblivious to the bomb that had just exploded at table 12. Jessica, please, let me explain. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You've been sleeping with my boss for months. The late nights, the mysterious phone calls, the sudden interest in being the perfect husband. Guilt does funny things to people, doesn't it? How long have you known? His voice was barely a whisper. 2 weeks of solid evidence, but I've suspected for longer. I took a sip of my wine, maintaining eye contact. The question isn't how long I've known. The question is what I'm going to do about it. David leaned forward, desperation creeping into his voice. Jessica, please. It meant nothing. It was a mistake. Sarah, she pursued me. I was weak, I was stupid, but I love you, I love our marriage. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you love the security of our marriage while enjoying the excitement of an affair. Best of both worlds, right? That's not how it is. Then tell me how it is, David. Tell me how you've been lying to my face for months, while sleeping with the woman who signs my paychecks. Tell me how you've been coming home to me after being with her, kissing me with the same mouth that's been on her body. Tell me how that's not exactly what it looks like. The tears started then. David's, not mine. I felt strangely detached, like I was watching this confrontation happen to someone else. I never meant for it to happen. It started innocently. She came to me with a project, said she needed some design work done. We met for coffee to discuss it, and she was just so, and different from you. Not better, just different. She made me feel like I was still interesting, still desirable. So this is my fault. I made you feel uninteresting. No, God no, this is all on me. Jessica, you have to believe me, I was planning to end it. I was going to tell her tonight that it was over, that I couldn't keep doing this to you, to us. I almost laughed. Almost. Is that what you were going to tell her at the hotel across the street? Because I saw her car, David. I saw her walk in with an overnight bag. That doesn't look like a breakup conversation to me. His face crumpled. You saw her. I see everything now. That's what happens when you start paying attention. Amazing how much becomes clear when you're not blinded by trust. Jessica, please. I know I don't deserve it, but please, give me a chance to fix this. I'll end it tonight. I'll never speak to her again. I'll do whatever you want. I studied his face. This man I'd loved for 8 years. This man I'd built a life with. This man who'd been betraying me while I slept next to him every night. Here's what's going to happen. I said, my voice steady and calm. You're going to go to that hotel room. You're going to have your little rendezvous with Sarah. And you're going to enjoy it, because it's going to be the last time. What do you mean? I mean, I'm not going to be the wife who begs and pleads and tries to compete with the other woman. I'm not going to pick-me-dance myself into desperation while you decide between us. I'm going to let you have exactly what you want, and then I'm going to show you what losing everything actually feels like. You're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. Because while you're across the street playing house with Sarah, I'm going to be making some phone calls. I'm going to be sending some emails. I'm going to be having some very interesting conversations. David's hands were shaking now. What kind of conversations? The kind that tend to happen when people discover that their business partner has been using company resources to conduct an affair. The kind that happen when wives find out their husbands have been using joint credit cards to pay for hotel rooms and romantic dinners with other women. The kind that happen when HR departments learn that supervisors have been sleeping with employees' husbands and potentially creating hostile work environments. You wouldn't. Try me. I finished my wine and set the glass down with deliberate precision. I've spent 2 weeks gathering evidence, David. Financial records, location data, text messages, photographs. I have documentation of every lie you've told, every excuse you've made, every time you've been with her when you said you were somewhere else. Jessica, I'm not finished. You see, I could have confronted you 2 weeks ago. I could have caused a scene, thrown you out, filed for divorce in a fit of rage. But that would have been messy, emotional, and emotions make people stupid. I decided to be smart instead. I leaned forward, my voice dropping to just above a whisper. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to go to that hotel. You're going to spend the night with Sarah. And tomorrow morning, you're going to wake up to a very different world than the one you're living in tonight. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that Sarah's husband Marcus, yes, I know about Marcus, the husband she's been cheating on with you, is going to receive a very interesting package of photos and documents tomorrow morning. I'm talking about the fact that your biggest client is going to learn that you've been falsifying your availability and project timelines to cover for your affair. I'm talking about the fact that Sarah's boss is going to discover that she's been using company resources and her position to conduct a personal relationship that creates conflicts of interest. David looked like he was going to be sick. You can't do this. I can and I will. Unless what? Unless what? Unless you stand up right now, walk out of this restaurant, drive home, and never speak to Sarah Martinez again. Unless you delete her number, block her on all social media, and transfer all your business dealings with her company to someone else. Unless you're willing to spend the next year rebuilding the trust you've destroyed and proving that our marriage is worth saving. And if I do that, you'll forgive me. We can work through this. I smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. Oh, David, you still don't get it. This isn't about forgiveness. This isn't about working through anything. This is about consequences. I don't understand. Whether you go to that hotel tonight or not, our marriage is over. Whether you end the affair or not, I'm filing for divorce. Whether you choose me or her, you're gonna lose both of us. The only question is whether you lose everything else too. The silence stretched between us, heavy with 8 years of shared history and the weight of choices that couldn't be undone. You're really going to destroy both our lives over this? I'm not destroying anything, David. You already did that. I'm just making sure the destruction is complete and final, rather than letting it drag out over months or years of false reconciliations and repeated betrayals. I stood up, gathering my purse and coat. The check is paid. Your choice is simple, go to the hotel or go home. But understand that either way, when you wake up tomorrow, the life you've been living is over. I left David sitting at that table, staring into his wine glass like it might contain answers to questions he didn't even know how to ask. But I didn't go home. Instead, I drove to the coffee shop 3 blocks from our house, ordered a large black coffee, and opened my laptop. It was time to make good on my promises. The first email was the hardest to write. Marcus Martinez, Sarah's husband of 12 years, father to her 2 young daughters, a man I'd met exactly 3 times at company holiday parties. He seemed nice enough, the kind of guy who brought homemade cookies to office events and always asked about people's families. He didn't deserve what I was about to tell him, but he deserved to know the truth. Dear Marcus. I began, then deleted it. Too formal. Marcus, I hope you're well. We've met a few times at Sarah's work events. I'm Jessica Chen from the marketing department. I'm writing to you about something that I wish I didn't have to share, but I believe you have a right to know. I attached the photos I'd taken over the past 2 weeks. David's car in Sarah's neighborhood when he was supposed to be at client meetings. Sarah leaving a hotel downtown at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday morning when she told our team she was working from home. Screenshots of credit card statements showing charges at restaurants and hotels that I'd never been to, on dates when David claimed he was working late. The evidence was damning, but I made sure to present it clinically factually. Let the proof speak for itself. The second email was to Janet Morrison, the HR director at our agency. This one required more finesse. I couldn't just dump evidence of an affair and expect corporate action. I had to frame it in terms of workplace harassment and conflicts of interest. Janet, I need to schedule a confidential meeting with you regarding a situation that's creating a hostile work environment for me. Without going into detail in this email, I've discovered that my direct supervisor has been conducting a personal relationship with my spouse that she has leveraged into workplace favoritism and exclusion. I have documentation that shows company resources and time have been used to facilitate this relationship, and I believe this creates serious liability issues for the agency. I'm available to meet first thing Monday morning to discuss this in detail. I attached selected evidence, nothing too personal, just enough to show that company time and resources were being misused. The third communication was the one I'd been looking forward to most. Robert Chen, no relation, despite the name, was David's biggest client, a demanding perfectionist who valued reliability and honesty above all else. David had been lying to Robert for months, claiming work delays due to technical issues when he was actually busy with Sarah. Robert, this is Jessica, David's wife. I'm reaching out because I've discovered some information that I believe affects your business relationship with David. Over the past 4 months, David has been providing you with false explanations for project delays and missed deadlines. The actual reason for these delays is that he's been conducting an extramarital affair during work hours. I have documentation showing that on dates when he told you he was working on your projects, he was actually engaged in personal activities. I felt you deserved to know that the delays you've experienced were not due to technical challenges or work overload, but rather due to David prioritizing his personal life over his professional commitments to you. I included a detailed timeline showing the correlation between David's supposed work crisis and his actual whereabouts. Robert was the type of man who would find the deception more offensive than the affair itself. But I wasn't done. The real masterpiece was still to come. I opened a new email and addressed it to every single person in Sarah's professional network whose contact information I could find. Her boss, her colleagues, her clients, the vendors she worked with, even her professional references from LinkedIn. I crafted it carefully, professionally, but with devastating precision. Dear Neem, I am writing to inform you of a situation involving Sarah Martinez that may impact your professional relationship with her. I have discovered that Sarah has been using her position as a supervisor to conduct an inappropriate relationship with the spouse of one of her direct reports. This relationship has involved the misuse of company resources, creation of hostile work environments, and potential violations of professional ethics standards. While I understand that personal relationships are generally private matters, the professional implications of this situation, including potential legal liability and violation of supervisory responsibilities, may be relevant to your business dealings with Sarah. I have documented evidence available if needed for your professional decision-making. I scheduled this email to send at 8 a.m. Monday morning to 43 different recipients. By lunchtime Monday, Sarah's professional reputation would be in ruins. As I was putting the finishing touches on my digital revenge campaign, my phone buzzed with a text from David. I'm at home. I didn't go to the hotel. Please come home so we can talk. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back. Interesting choice, but it doesn't change anything. Check your email in the morning. Another message came through immediately. Jessica, please. I'm begging you, don't destroy our lives over this. I made a mistake, but we can fix it. Our lives were destroyed the moment you decided to betray me. I'm just making it official. My phone started ringing. David, calling desperately. I declined the call and turned off my phone. But as I was packing up my laptop, I realized I had one more stop to make. The hotel where Sarah was presumably waiting for David, wondering where he was, why he hadn't shown up. I drove across town to the Meridian Hotel, a mid-range business hotel that catered to traveling professionals and people having affairs. The kind of place that didn't ask questions and had hourly rates available. I parked next to Sarah's silver sedan and walked into the lobby. The desk clerk, a bored-looking young man scrolling through his phone, barely glanced up when I approached. I'm supposed to meet my friend Sarah Martinez. She's expecting me. Could you give me her room number? I can't give out room numbers, but I can call up to let her know you're here. What's your name? Tell her Jessica is here to talk. He dialed a room number and spoke quietly into the phone. After a moment, he looked confused. She says she doesn't know any Jessica and she's not expecting anyone. Tell her it's Jessica Chen, from work. Tell her it's about David. This time when he relayed the message, I could hear Sarah's sharp intake of breath through the phone. After a long pause, the clerk nodded. She'll be right down. I settled into one of the lobby's leather chairs and waited. Within 5 minutes, Sarah emerged from the elevator, still dressed in her black dress but looking significantly less put together than she had earlier. Her hair was mussed, her lipstick gone, and there was a wild, panicked look in her eyes. What are you doing here? She hissed, looking around the lobby to see if anyone was watching. I think the better question is what you're doing here. Waiting for my husband, perhaps. I don't know what you're talking about. Cut the shit, Sarah. I know about the affair. I know about tonight. I know about everything. She sank into the chair across from me, all pretense abandoned. How long have you known? Long enough. The question is, what are you going to do about it? What do you mean? I mean David isn't coming tonight. He went home instead, probably hoping to salvage his marriage. Which leaves you sitting alone in a hotel room, waiting for a man who chose his wife over you. How does that feel? Sarah's composure cracked completely. He chose you. He chose self-preservation. There's a difference. But don't worry, it won't matter in the long run. By Monday morning, both of your lives are going to be very different. What are you talking about? I pulled out my phone and showed her screenshots of the emails I'd prepared. Her face went white as she read. You can't send these. I already have. Well, most of them. Marcus will wake up tomorrow to some very interesting reading material. Your boss will have quite the surprise waiting Monday morning, and David's clients are going to have some serious questions about his professional integrity. You're going to destroy both of us. You destroyed yourselves. I'm just making sure everyone else knows about it. Sarah started crying then, mascara running down her cheeks in black streaks. Please, Jessica. I know I made a terrible mistake. I know I hurt you, but please don't destroy my marriage. My children don't deserve this. Funny how you didn't think about your children when you were planning to spend the night with my husband. Funny how you didn't consider your marriage when you were using company resources to facilitate your affair. Funny how you only care about consequences when they're about to affect you. What do you want? Money. I'll quit my job. I'll transfer departments. I'll do whatever you ask. What I want is for you to understand that actions have consequences. What I want is for you to experience the same betrayal and humiliation you helped inflict on me. What I want is for you to lose everything you value, the same way you helped my husband take everything I valued. This will destroy my family. Your choices destroyed your family. I'm just making it visible. I stood up, gathering my purse. Enjoy your lonely hotel room, Sarah. Think about all the choices that brought you here. And when you wake up tomorrow to your new reality, remember that you earned every bit of it. As I walked toward the hotel exit, Sarah called after me, desperation clear in her voice. What if I can convince David to come back to you? What if I end the affair and never speak to him again? What if I do whatever you want? I turned back to look at her one last time. The affair is already over, Sarah. David went home to try to save his marriage. But here's the thing you still don't understand. Some things can't be undone. Some betrayals are so complete, so devastating, that there's no path back. You didn't just sleep with my husband. You made me question my own worth, my own judgment, my ability to trust my own perceptions. You made me feel like a fool in my own life. I never meant. Intent doesn't matter. Impact does. And the impact of what you've done to me, to my marriage, to my sense of self, that's permanent. So no, there's nothing you can do to fix this. There's nothing you can offer that will make me change my mind. You're going to face the consequences of your choices, just like I'm facing the consequences of trusting the wrong people. I left her sitting in that hotel lobby, crying over the ruins of her own making. When I got home, I found David waiting in our living room, still dressed in his dinner clothes, looking like a man attending his own funeral. The house felt different somehow, like a stage set for a play that had already ended. You came back, he said when I walked in. I live here. For now. Jessica, please. We need to talk about this. We need to figure out how to fix this. I looked at this man I'd loved, this man I'd built a life with, this man who'd betrayed me so completely that I barely recognized him anymore. There's nothing to fix, David. It's broken beyond repair. That's not true. People survive infidelity. Marriage can come back from this. Maybe some marriages can. Ours can't? Why not? What makes us different? I sat down across from him, suddenly exhausted. Because this wasn't just an affair, David. This was a calculated deception involving my workplace, my boss, my professional relationships. This was you lying to my face every single day while sleeping with the woman who controls my career. This was you using our shared resources to fund your betrayal. This was you making me complicit in my own humiliation. I never wanted you to find out. That makes it worse, not better. You were content to live a lie for the rest of our marriage. You were willing to let me build my future on a foundation of deception. So what happens now? I looked around our living room, at the photos of our wedding, our vacations, our life together. Tomorrow, I would start the process of dismantling all of it. But tonight, I wanted to savor this moment, the moment when David finally understood that his choices had consequences he couldn't charm or apologize his way out of. Now you learn what it feels like to lose everything. 3 months later, I was sitting in my new apartment, a small but bright space downtown that I'd furnished entirely with things that had never been touched by my old life. The divorce papers had been signed the week before. The settlement was generous. David had been so desperate to avoid having his affair exposed in court that he'd agreed to almost everything I asked for. But the real satisfaction came from watching the dominoes fall exactly as I'd planned. Marcus had filed for divorce immediately after receiving my email. Sarah's daughters now lived with him full-time while Sarah had moved into a studio apartment across town. The scandal had torn through their social circle like wildfire. Sarah had lost her job within 2 weeks of my HR complaint. The agency couldn't afford to keep someone who'd created such a massive liability, especially once other employees started coming forward with stories of favoritism and inappropriate behavior they'd been too scared to report before. David's business had collapsed almost as quickly. Robert Chen had terminated their contract immediately and made sure to spread the word about David's unreliability throughout their professional network. Other clients followed suit once they learned about his deceptive practices. He'd had to take a job working for someone else's firm at half his previous income. But the twist I hadn't expected came when I was clearing out my old email account. I found a draft message in Sarah's email from 6 months before the affair started. A message she'd never sent, but had saved. It was addressed to David, and it laid out a detailed plan for seducing him, gathering information about our marriage, and eventually breaking us up so she could have him for herself. She'd researched his interests, his weaknesses, his schedule. She'd deliberately chosen projects that would require working with him. She'd even gone so far as to identify specific things she could say to make him feel unappreciated at home. This hadn't been a spontaneous affair or a moment of weakness. This had been a calculated campaign to destroy my marriage from the inside out. I printed that email and added it to my evidence file, just in case, but I never needed to use it. The damage I'd already inflicted was complete and permanent. The final piece of closure came when I ran into Sarah at the grocery store last week. She looked terrible, thin, tired, wearing clothes that had clearly seen better days. She saw me before I saw her, and for a moment, I thought she might try to avoid me. Instead, she walked up to me, her head held high despite everything. "I want you to know I don't blame you," she said quietly. "What you did to us. We deserved it. All of it." "I know," I replied. "Are you happy now that you've gotten your revenge?" I thought about that question for a moment. Was I happy? I was certainly satisfied. I felt vindicated. I felt like justice had been served. But happy? I'm at peace, I finally said. I sleep well at night knowing that people face consequences for their choices. I'm at peace knowing that I didn't let myself be a victim. I fought back and I won. She nodded, understanding. "For what it's worth, I really am sorry. Not for getting caught, but for what we put you through. You didn't deserve any of it." "No, I didn't." And that was it. We parted ways in that grocery store aisle. Two women whose lives had been forever changed by choices made in secrecy and betrayal. As I drove home that day, I realized something important. Revenge isn't about making yourself feel better. It's about making sure that people understand that their actions matter, that betrayal has a price, that you can't build your happiness on someone else's destruction without consequences. I rebuilt my life from the ground up, and it's better than it ever was before. I have a new job at a company where I'm valued and respected. I have an apartment that's entirely mine, furnished with things I chose because I liked them, not because they matched someone else's taste. I have friends who know the whole truth about what happened and respect me for how I handled it. Most importantly, I have myself back, the woman who was strong enough to gather evidence instead of falling apart. The woman who was smart enough to plan her revenge instead of acting on emotion. The woman who refused to be a victim of someone else's betrayal. What would you do if you discovered your partner was having an affair with someone who controlled your career? Would you confront them immediately? Or would you plan your response like I did? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and I want to know how you would handle finding yourself in my situation. And if this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted, hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories about people who refuse to be victims. Because sometimes, the best revenge is simply making sure that actions have consequences.